In today's hyperactive world, silence is often seen as a void and absence, a weakness. People are taught to speak up, assert themselves loudly, and fight to be heard. But what if I told you that true strength often lies in restraint, not reaction? That silence isn't a void, but a vessel, a space filled with depth, reflection, and control. When you are silent, you are not powerless, you are powerful beyond measure. Because in silence, you are no longer playing someone else's game. You stop reacting to the noise outside and begin responding to the truth inside. You shift your energy inward. And in that shift, something remarkable happens. You gain control. Not over others, but over yourself. Silence gives you the advantage of observation. It sharpens your awareness. It allows you to study your surroundings, understand people's true motives, and respond with precision instead of impulse. While others waste energy trying to dominate every conversation or control every outcome, you conserve yours. You learn to hold space for wisdom, for clarity, for alignment. Consider this: the strongest trees don't grow from frantic movement. They grow from grounded stillness. Their roots run deep not because they rushed, but because they remain steady and silent through every storm. You too can build that kind of strength, not by shouting your worth to the world, but by knowing your worth so deeply that the world begins to feel it in your silence. We often believe that the more we do, the faster we move, the louder we speak, the quicker we'll get answers. But the truth is, clarity doesn't emerge from chaos, it arises from calm. In fact, the more noise you surround yourself with, from social media, endless opinions, emotional distractions, constant comparison, the more confused and anxious your mind becomes. The louder the world, the harder it is to hear your own voice. Stillness, on the other hand, is where clarity lives. When you pause, when you stop running, stop reacting, stop trying to fill every moment with activity. You give yourself a chance to see things as they are, not as your stress or fear has painted them to be. Imagine a muddy pond after a storm. You can't see your reflection, can't see what lies beneath. But if you just let the water settle, the mud sinks, the image clears. Your thoughts work the same way. If you constantly stir your mind with external noise, you never allow your truth to rise. But the moment you become still, answers you were chasing begin to surface on their own. Clarity isn't something you chase, it's something you uncover. And it doesn't scream, it whispers. But you can only hear that whisper in silence. That's why people who master the art of stillness often make the wisest decisions. They aren't in a hurry to act. They don't rush to speak. They sit, they listen, they wait. And when they move with purpose, not pressure. We've been conditioned to believe that if we don't control everything, every outcome, every reaction, every detail will fall behind or fail, but control is often just another form of fear disguised as ambition. It comes from a place of lack, from the belief that if we're not pushing, forcing, or manipulating situations, life won't give us what we want. But here's a powerful truth. The more tightly you try to grip something, the more it slips through your fingers. Whether it's people, plans, or peace, control breeds resistance, and resistance blocks flow. When you learn to let go of control, you don't become passive, you become aligned. You stop chasing what doesn't belong to you and start attracting what does. You move from force to faith, from anxiety to awareness, from friction to flow. Think of a river, it doesn't argue with the rocks in its path. It doesn't try to bend nature to its will. It flows, it adapts. It surrenders to gravity and direction, knowing it will reach its destination not through resistance, but through movement guided by nature itself. And yet, that same river carves through mountains, not because it forced its way, but because it stayed in flow, steady and sure. Letting go of control means trusting the timing of your life. It means understanding that your effort matters, but your attachment to outcome does not. When you release the need to dictate how and when things must happen, you open yourself to something far more powerful, divine timing, and natural alignment. That's when doors open you never even knocked on. That's when what is meant for you arrives without the stress of pursuit. In conversations, most people don't listen to understand, they listen to respond. They're already formulating a reply while the other person is still speaking. And in this constant exchange of noise, we often miss what truly matters, not just the words, but the emotions, the silences between the lines, the truths people struggle to express. Silence, when practiced consciously, becomes a powerful tool of connection. It creates space for others to be seen, heard, and felt. When you are silent, you're not absent, you're present, deeply present. You're not distracted by your ego or your urge to be right. You are there fully, completely, and without agenda. And this level of presence is rare, but it's transformative. When someone speaks to you and they feel you're genuinely listening, not interrupting, not judging, just listening, healing begins. Trust, respect forms. That's the magic of presence. And presence can only grow in the fertile ground of silence. This doesn't only apply to how you listen to others. It's also about how you listen to yourself. In the noise of the world, your inner voice gets drowned out. You begin to lose your connection with your own values, your truth, your intuition. But when you allow silence to enter your daily life, when you stop filling every moment with noise, content, or conversation, your internal voice becomes audible again. And that voice is your most honest compass. Silence is also where we practice mindfulness, not some mystical experience, but the simple act of being here in this moment, not regretting the past, not fearing the future, just being. And in that being, there is peace. So in your relationships, your work, and even with yourself, silence allows for depth. It invites truth. It builds trust. Because people don't always need advice. Sometimes they just need someone to hold space, and silence, respectful and sacred, is how we hold that space. We've been taught to chase, to run after goals, people, recognition, success, as if our value depends on how aggressively we pursue what we want. Society tells us to hustle, to always be doing more, moving faster, proving ourselves. But there's an unseen cost to this mindset: exhaustion, anxiety, burnout, and a constant feeling of never being enough. But what if there's another way? What if instead of chasing, you became someone who attracts? When you're always chasing, you're moving from a place of scarcity. You believe something is missing, and you must hunt it down before it's too late. But when you pause, when you ground yourself in stillness and presence, you begin to realize that the things meant for you aren't running away from you. In fact, they're looking for you too. But they can only find you when you stop running and become visible energetically and emotionally. Stillness is not about inaction, it's about alignment. When you're aligned with who you truly are, not what others expect of you, you send out a different frequency. You no longer need to beg for attention, validation, or opportunity. You radiate presence, and presence is magnetic. Think of it this way: a flower doesn't chase the bee. It simply blooms fully, authentically, and unapologetically. And in doing so, it attracts exactly what it needs for growth. You too can be that flower. You don't need to force connections, opportunities, or love. You just need to become whole, become peaceful, and become rooted in your truth. And everything aligned with that truth will naturally find its way to you. Stillness teaches you patience, and patience teaches you self-worth. You learn to trust that you are enough without the chase, that the right people, the right timing, and the right experiences will align with your energy, not your effort to control. In the modern world, speed is often mistaken for strength. We reward urgency, we glorify instant results, we admire people who move fast, speak fast, decide fast. But true power, the kind that lasts, doesn't come from reacting quickly. It comes from responding wisely. And that wisdom is born from patience and silence. Patience isn't weakness. It's not indecision. It is the ability to hold your energy, to restrain your impulse, and to wait for the right moment instead of every moment. Likewise, silence is not avoidance, it's preparation. It is the pause that allows strategy to form, emotions to settle, and intentions to become clear. Think of a chess grandmaster. They don't move the moment the opponent makes a move. They wait, they assess the entire board, they remain calm, poised, and when they do move, it's deliberate, precise, and impactful. That's what patience and silence do for you in life. They shift you from a reactive player to a strategic one. Most people speak because they're uncomfortable with stillness. They act because they fear being left behind. But in rushing, they miss subtle opportunities. In speaking too soon, they reveal too much. In acting too fast, they create unnecessary mistakes. Strategic strength lies in knowing when to move, what to say, and what to hold back, and all of that wisdom comes from the still spaces within you. Those who can remain composed in silence are the ones who learn the most. They see patterns others miss. They listen not just to words, but to intent. And when they act, it's not noisy, it's noticeable. Their strength doesn't come from being loud. It comes from being prepared, purposeful, and emotionally grounded. In a world of endless motion, patience and silence become your superpowers. They allow you to conserve energy, observe reality, and respond from a place of confidence, not chaos. We often underestimate the impact of energy, the unseen force that we carry into every room, every relationship, every interaction. While words are the most obvious form of communication, energy is the most honest. You can speak with confidence, but if your energy is anxious, people will feel that. You can say all the right things, but if your energy is desperate, it will betray your words. In silence, however, your energy has the space to speak. When you stop talking and start being, your presence becomes louder than anything you could say. It reveals your self-respect, your boundaries, your awareness, your emotional intelligence. People start to notice not just what you say, but what you don't say, what you choose not to respond to, what you refuse to entertain. That silence becomes a powerful message. You don't need to defend yourself constantly when you're grounded in your truth. You don't need to argue or over-explain when your energy is aligned. People may not always understand your silence, but they will always feel your presence. And presence is what leaves a lasting impression. Think about the people you admire most, not just for their accomplishments, but for their calm, their grace, their ability to walk into a room and shift the energy without uttering a word. That's not noise. That's mastery. That's what happens when your internal world is at peace. You no longer need to prove yourself. Your energy does the work for you. In fact, silence is often the final evolution of wisdom. When you've seen enough, experienced enough, and grown enough, you realize you don't have to participate in every conflict or comment on every situation. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can offer is nothing but a calm presence, steady, grounded, self-assured. You become someone who doesn't need validation to feel valuable, someone who doesn't need noise to feel noticed. Your silence becomes your strength, and your energy becomes your voice.